Hi, this is the continuation of my solo campaign featuring From the Ashes. If you haven't seen the other parts of this solo campaign, please check out the link in the description below. It's going to take you to the playlist. I'm also going to put links to the videos where I talk about the systems that I am using with this solo campaign. Now let's begin. You may remember that Corvus was on his way to the third gate. So it is still daytime, and Corvus moves along the mountain trail and spots a village in the distance. This is very strange. The only other town or village that he has seen in this strange dimension was the one where he started his adventure. So he decides to get a bit closer. He continues to move down the mountain path, but he cannot see too many details when it comes to the village. He only manages to identify clusters of buildings, but everything is just too far away to perceive more details. After a few minutes of walking down the mountain path, he finds a small trace of something. It appears to be blood. He decides to follow this newly spotted crimson trail until he finally reaches the source of this small trail of blood. It's a corpse. It is somewhat badly decomposed, which is strange considering the freshness, so to speak, of the bloody trail. And the corpse seems to be holding some sort of note in its hand. Corvus snatches the note, and the note reads, "The Baron killed them all." Corvus tries to identify more details or more clues about this corpse, but it seems to be a normal man, dressed in average-looking garments. So Corvus leaves the corpse and keeps on walking down the mountain path. Down a curve ahead, there is this sort of group of small floating islands. They are close enough for Corvus to move across them by making some small jumps. I made a roll to see what Corvus would do, and I obtained Grow Sacrilegious Monster. So I interpreted it in the following way. Corvus decides not to move across the islands. Something monstrous or sacrilegious might be growing on them. Corvus continues his walk towards the village and encounters a skull on a plinth. The strange thing is that the skull begins to talk in a whispery voice. The skull tells Corvus that it will answer 3 questions. I made a roll using the system to determine social interactions when it comes to player emulation. I set Corvus to be a solo bystander that is passing by, and I obtained the result of sense motive. Corvus is going to try to sense the motive behind the skeleton's offer to answer questions. So I made a roll using the system of From the Ashes, but Corvus failed the roll. I forgot to mention that I also treated as if Corvus was more powerful than the small skull on the plinth. This also influences the result before making the check. So with the insight check resulting in failure, and taking into account the position of Corvus on the social interaction track, if you do not know what that is all about, please check out the link in the description below. Corvus ended up feeling too wary or distrustful of this talking skull. With the insight check resulting in failure, the end result of this interaction was Corvus questioning the motives of the skull. So Corvus decides to ignore the skull and continues his path down the mountain road. This is actually something good for Corvus because the skull was actually a liar and he was going to provide false information. However, when it comes to the floating islands before, Corvus should have climbed on top of them because there was actually treasure. But just like in a regular adventure, sometimes player characters do not make the right choices at the right time. After continuing his trek down the path, Corvus reaches what is obviously the third gate, located on the side of the mountain. Nothing can be glimpsed on the other side of its rusty bars. There is only supernatural darkness and the stench of burning skin. Yet, no fire can be seen. To the side of the gate is an iron door. Above it, there is a sign in a strange language that Corvus mysteriously manages to read. It says, "Enter and make your choice." Corvus lights up his lantern and decides to open the door and go inside. The door swings inwardly quite easily, revealing a large cave. which is littered with debris and numerous remains of campfires. There are also old and moldy backpacks that lean against the walls. It would seem that many people have camped here over the decades. There is nothing useful here. All is ruined and decayed. However, the walls facing north, south, and west each has one door. Each door is made of iron, and above each one of them, there is a plaque with a specific message. The north one reads, "Flowing past through within, a river flow above the din." The west door reads, "They worship, but it falls on death's ears." The south door reads, "Toward the sun they point, until the sun turns black." And even the door that Corvus used to enter this cave has a plaque above it, and it reads, "Return to whence you came." I decided to make a roll to see what door Corvus was going to choose, and I obtained Control Angelic Daemon, and my interpretation was the following. Corvus thinks that perhaps the sun mentioned in the south door symbolizes angelic power, and the turns black part is perhaps a demonic reference. He decides to open the south door because maybe it hides the means to control such awesome angelic and demonic powers. He opens the south door with ease and finds nothing but darkness. However, as he steps in, his lantern illuminates what seems to be the interior of an old tomb made of sandstone. He notices that the atmosphere around him feels somewhat dreamlike, quite surreal. He turns around and notices that the door behind him has vanished completely. There is only a wall. As Corvus investigates the room, he finds a mummified corpse inside a sarcophagus. The corpse seems to have been unwrapped and defiled. It holds no jewelry, nor any ceremonial objects. As Corvus investigates this, a stone door to the side slides open, allowing blinding sunlight into the tomb. A group of strangely dressed warriors, wearing clothes that you would expect to see in old Stygia, enter the tomb. They point their strange, curved weapons at Corvus, and speak to him in a menacing way in a language that he cannot interpret. Suddenly, Corvus is surrounded by absolute darkness, and in the blink of an eye, he seems to have been teleported inside of a jail cell. All his equipment has been taken from him. And that concludes the session report for today. I'm really pleased with how the social interaction system that I am using worked to solve the situation between Corvus and the skull. I also like how the tracker that I've been using to keep track of Corvus's attitude towards the environment has also been very useful to determine if a result from the other systems is going to be a positive or a negative result. The willingness of Corvus to interact with the world around him. Well, thanks for watching this session report. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those that have been supporting the channel by sending Drive-Thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.